Hi there. Welcome. It's tea time. And today we will be discussing speech, dialect, rhetoric, tone, and pitch. English. There are many different languages in the world. Each one of these languages have different dialects. English in particular has over 160 dialects and 30 in the US. So the things that separate and create dialect are like region, culture, and class in some cases. So people in the north of America speak and sound different than people in the south of America, in the southern states of the U.S. Um, Culture makes a difference. Black people sound different from Spanish people who all speak English. And then there are different type of Spanish people who speak English, and they're all coming from different cultural backgrounds, and we all develop our own different dialects. Even in England, there are different dialects. So people from one region may sound different from others, and people in different classes and cultural differences, those are different things that help create dialect. Dialect is very important to understand, because when you're communicating with someone, if you're speaking in like a dialect, they may not completely understand what you're saying or what you mean. For example, I listen to hip hop music, so I'm constantly up to date on what is common in different African American dialects. One thing I've never heard before with the term 12, I recently learned that 12 actually means police. That's something I've never heard before. When I was younger, they used to use the term 50. However, it's changed. So we know like what separates us and gives us dialect, so like our culture, region, and class. But what makes our dialects different from one another? Well, that could be the speed in which we talk, timing and how we say certain things, how we time out certain words, the pitch of our voices, our tone, the way we articulate certain words, our word choice. So like word popularity is a thing. And if you ever look up the definition of a word like on Google or in a dictionary, they'll show you, especially on Google in particular, they'll if you click more information about that word, they'll give you not just multiple different definitions, they'll also show you a timeline of popularity for that word. um for example, the word swag was added in the English dictionary by Soldier Boy. We haven't had too many African American people contribute to the English language, in as far as, let me not say contribute to the language, but word they to create words that are added into the dictionary. Soldier Boy is one of them, so he, for him, yeah. But he's contributed the word swag. Well, swag was actually already a word. He basically created a new definition for it. So swag is an old English word that was used to refer to drapery, and he used the term to refer to the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, right? Basically it's like, my I don't know how to describe it other than swag. It's my swag. This is my swag. The way I wear my clothes, the way that I sit, the way that I speak, it's all my swag, right? But originally that word is like really old, from like the 1700s, used to refer to drapes, like window drapes. So, yeah. How do we differentiate between different dialects, and when is the right time to use it? So I hear this phrase a lot, and then I hear the comment that's made in retaliation. So I hear the phrase, "You sound white," and I know that gets under a lot of people's skin, and they tend to respond with, "No, I speak standard English," which is very offensive, because it's implying that your way of speaking is not standard or it's incorrect. Because what they are saying is I speak the correct way and you speak incorrectly. Which is not true, right? Now, you very well could sound like a white person. We know, let's keep it 100. Let's be real with one another. For those who don't know what keep it 100 means, let's be 100% real and honest. White people sound different from black people. There is a way that black people talk. There are many ways that black people talk. There are many ways that white people talk. So, what is the correct way of speaking? If we're speaking English language originated in England. So if you go to England and you don't speak like them, then you're not speaking correctly according to your ideology. However, we have different dialects. People in the Southern Americas sound different from people in the North. They in the South, their dialect of English is closer to the Old English language. If you study speech pathology and things of that nature, like articulation and pronunciations, you'll notice that certain words they say are very similar in sound. In the North, the people in the North have actually, I'm a Northerner. We have actually developed our own pronunciation of words, which is concerning to me. Who's right when we're teaching our children the alphabet? Who's teaching them the correct way of pronouncing the letter A? And that's weird. But nonetheless, we all have a different standard depending on the dialect in which you learn, right? And again, so dialect, I define dialect by speech, pitch, tone, articulation, and word choice. So when someone say you sound white, you very well may sound white. It's not to insult you and say that you are bad. It's just to say you sound, if you're a black person, that's not what they're used to. You may be the only person they've ever met that sounds that way, that's black. But I have a phrase here. I'm going to say it in different ways, and I want you to tell me, well, you determine what the difference is and how I say them. I love Chanel bags. Is that standard English to you? Now watch this. I love Chanel bags. What's the difference? Is it that I pronounced a word wrong? I didn't. I pronounced them almost exactly alike. But I changed something in my voice when I said it to make one sound more Caucasian, European, and American, and African American, right? So the first way, I love Chanel bags. Simple, right? The second way, I actually changed my vocal cords to create a different type of sound. And I also timed out certain syllables in the word differently, and I went up on the pitch in certain words I went up on the pitch in certain syllables to create a different sound when I said a word, to separate a language or a dialect. Okay? Then there's also word choice, right? I know back in the 90s, a very popular word amongst African American people when they would refer to a person that we now consider to be wretched or ratchet is trifling. They used to use the term trifling a lot. Trifling is another Old English word that hadn't been used in a while, and it had lost popularity, but it regained popularity in the 90s amongst African American culture. So that was a common word for black people to use, is trifling. So depending on the dialect or the people that you're around, the dialect of English that you speak, there are certain verbiage, there are certain words that are more popularly used, like sheesh or like. I know certain type of European Americans use the word like a lot, and some don't. So it's just it depends on the dialect. Now, when you respond with the I speak standard English, I want you to understand that there are many different standards of English based upon a dialect. So there is no one standard of speaking English. There's so many different ways to speak English. I think, when you say that, it's so insulting. As a black person, I feel like it's very insulting because I feel like the intent is to demean black people in a way, or to make that person feel stupid. And they're not stupid. They're noticing something that is very well a sign that they have high intelligence. But it's not to beat you down. It's just pointing out a difference. So, for those people who do sound white, some people are raised in different cultures and different regions where they learn a different dialect, or they build habits of different dialects. And that leads me to the next point of why people code switch, right? So some people are raised in environments that aren't surrounded around people that traditionally look like them or are like them. So they develop other people's culture as their own, right? So that can affect someone's dialect and their speech. In addition to that, there's also, influences. So I know I went to a very diverse high school, and I'm a code switcher. So I found myself naturally, not even doing it on purpose, code switching depending on the culture I speak to. So my Arabic friends, when I speak to them, I tend to develop an Arabic accent. And it's not on intentional or on purpose to insult them. It just kind of comes out naturally as I'm listening to them speak and I'm repeating back to them words. Sometimes it kind of rubs off on me a little. And the same thing happens with the Caucasian Americans and, just different racial groups. As black people in America, though, I think with racism and the history of slavery, we still are dealing with the effects of that, right? So one thing about African American culture is that we are demonized a lot of times, and in some cases black culture embraces negative behavior like violence. It promotes, if you listen to like a lot of hip hop, sometimes it can promote violence. It can promote, disrespect of women, things like that. So it kind of makes some black people feel like they don't want to be associated with the culture. So they tend to develop another person's culture and dialect as a way of denouncing and disassociating themselves with the negativity, right? And one thing about that is that that's not necessarily wrong. It has become a survival mechanism to code switch in order to survive. Majority of the black people I know code switch for jobs. They code switch whenever they have to go to court. They code switch so that they won't be badly judged, or their character won't be badly judged. Because as a black person, it is assumed sometimes that you are not unintelligent. It is assumed that you are violent, aggressive, and angry. So it's like, in order to communicate with the world, I'm a respectable human being. I'm intelligent, and I'm a nice, kind person. People tend to code switch to share that information because of the stereotypes that white people are happy and friendly and black people are mean and aggressive, right? So those stereotypes, are part of why people code switch. In addition to that, it's about gaining wealth and a surplus in material possessions as well. Because like, I remember when I was in high school, there was a formal gown shop that was very popular, and they hired teenagers. But the only teenagers that worked at the shop were either white. They only hired white girls or black girls that talk and behave like white people. So if you talk like this, and yeah, like, I'm going to the movies Friday with my friend, and if you sound like that, then you got the job. But if you sound like, yeah, so I'm going to the movies with my friend, yes, next week, and we're about to turn up and have a good time. Good luck. They only they hire the black people that behave the most like them. It is, of course, owned by white people. And even black people do it sometimes because they want to sell to white people. And unfortunately, certain type of faces and characteristics only sell to certain type of people in some cases. And we see that mold being broken, and I commend all the people in the fashion industry that's hiring black American models, African models, and breaking that mold. I commend designer brands like Louis Vuitton for incorporating urban wear into their brand, because at some point that wasn't a thing. I remember in the 90s we had to start, a lot of black people began to make their own designer brands to incorporate, or excuse me, to create urban wear at the time, because there wasn't a lot of representation in high fashion brands. So like you see Fubu, Kuji, like there were different, brands out there. And since then, a lot of them have went under, and you start to see now more high end brands adding that to their brand. So yeah, it's still good because these brands are promoting now different cultures in a way that is forcing the world to embrace each other. Um, so with that being said, though, um, just because someone speak in a certain dialect does not make them unintelligent or less intelligent as you or more intelligent than you. Um, what is most important is the message, and we have to learn to look beyond and listen for that message. And I think that's something that is very queenly, to be able to speak to everyone and to be understanding of everyone, in the sense that we can break down barriers, understand one another, communicate, and grow as a people, as a country, as a continent, as a entire universe, as the world. Yeah, so let's build, and I think we have to start to understand our messages. Now, one thing I am big on is looking for the deeper meaning or the message. I listen to hip hop. Even though hip hop music sometimes promote negative violence and things like that, and I listen for the message. And as a business person, I relate to the message, because a lot of the things that I hear certain hip hop artists talk about is in association to business. They're talking about a different industry sometimes. However, I can relate. I know what a plug is. I got it contextually. I've never heard the term plug used before I heard this song, Plug Walk. What is a plug? I've never heard this, but I know what a plug is now because I'm listening to the song and they're saying plug walk. As I'm listening to what they're saying, I'm understanding, okay, this is a business connection. Someone who basically is very fruitful. Someone who basically help you multiply your wealth, or just introduce you and help you connect with others if you need connections, whatever it is. They're charging you up, they're plugging you in, and getting you some juice and some energy, right? So I get it. I'm hip, I'm really hip. Yeah, but with that being said, we have to look beyond rhetoric. And rhetoric, for those who don't know, is usually referring to different businesses or industries, and people in IT have different rhetoric than like a lawyer. That's why they have legal dictionaries and medical dictionaries for doctors. They have different rhetoric. Um, Drug dealers have a different rhetoric. Their rhetoric actually is particularly written. I mean, it's like in code so that the police won't be able to understand what they're saying. So if the police ever like tap their phones or whatever, they can communicate with one another without incriminating themselves, you know? So they have language that only they understand. Now, on another side of things, that doesn't mean you should tolerate certain behaviors. Like, it's okay to be accepting of other people's dialect and try to understand our message and be accepting to other people's culture, but you still have to have your standards. So I'll give you an example. About a year ago, I was cool with this girl, and we were like kind of friendly with one another. I wouldn't say we were friends yet, but we were associates. And we were together one day, and we had a disagreement. And I felt like it was a misunderstanding because she was not understanding my message or trying to understand it. She was not listening. The conversation, I allowed her to speak and say her piece. She was very aggressive and loud and irate, and it was just like very hard to get through to her because once she finished saying what she had to say, I tried to speak and she cut me off. And she continued to cut me off throughout the conversation. At some point, she called me a bitch. And I stopped her. Whoa. I stopped being because I was being quiet mostly and allowing her to speak. At that point, I changed my energy because I don't like that. So I assertively let her know, do not disrespect me in that way. Don't call me that. She continued to yell and scream, and at a certain point, she said it again. She said, I hate bitches like you. That's what she said. And I said, I just told you, and I said this very aggressively and to let her know, I just told you not to disrespect me like that. Do not call me a bitch. I do not tolerate that kind of language being directed at me. She was sitting in my car at the time, so I told her, if you say that to me, if you disrespect me again, you have to leave. I'm not allowing you to sit in my presence, in my vehicle, disrespecting me. You have to find another way to get to your destination because I'm not going to take you. Because at that point, I have respect for you as a human being, so I'm not going to do that to you. But if you continue to disrespect me, I cannot tolerate you because I know myself, and I'm not going to allow someone to push me to a point of losing it. I don't tolerate that word. I have my personal reasons, which I'll go over when I finish this anecdote. So she said to me, well, you know how it is. It's not even like that. You know how it is. In her mind, because I'm a black woman, I should be okay and comfortable with people calling me the term bitch. I'm not at all. And I let her know that. I said, no, I don't know how it is. And please enlighten me. I don't. What do you mean? Well, we always call each other bitch. I've never called you a bitch. What do you mean? Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm saying like, black girls. No. The way I was raised, that's not how we communicate with one another. The women in my family that raised me did never use that language. My grandmother is a Christian woman, first lady. She's never used that word. And I've never heard my grandmother cuss. I've never heard my grandfather disrespect my grandmother and call her out of her name, let alone to call her a B word. That's something I have heard in hip hop music, but not in my culture. So for me, I don't tolerate that. I'm aware that that's something people say. Some women have internalized it and they're okay and comfortable with it. They even call themselves the term. I, however, do not. And I do not tolerate other people calling me it either. Period. Zero circumstance. None at all. As a matter of fact, as a black woman, that's a bit of a soft spot for me because so many black people feel that it's comfortable. They're comfortable using that term to refer to women. Well, not me. Period. And that's the point that I had to make. You know, from my perspective, the women who I've seen use the word are women who don't usually have a lot of respect for themselves. They usually are not the most intelligent women. They usually be a little what's the term? Whores. No offense to any woman, because I know people like to there are people who feel like they want to do what they want with their body, whatever. But you know, I've never heard when I was a kid, I used to look up to women like Oprah, you know, Michelle Obama. I've never heard any of them use that term to refer to themselves. So, you know, my grandmother, I've never, you know, the first lady of my church, I've never heard any of them use that. Even if they did, that's their choice. Personally, I don't. By definition, a bitch is a lewd or immoral woman who is difficult to deal with. I have morals. I'm high morale, a lot of standards, and I refuse to allow someone to lower me by using that term to reference who I am as a person, and to feel comfortable with that simply because of the color of my skin. You think you can call me that? No, I don't care what you look like, who you are. You cannot use that term to refer to me ever. Period. For those women who choose to call themselves that, that is your choice. I know that some people feel like they call themselves the word and they'll put bad in front of it, and they feel like, you know, that just means that basically, you know, I don't need a man. I can do whatever I want. I can manage on my own. And, you know, I have different terminology: independent woman, queen, you know. So I'm not comfortable with the B word at all. However, if that's a word choice in your dialect, when you're talking to me, you need to code switch for me to understand your message, because it's not getting through. There's a wall. So with that being said, that it is what it is. That's what it is. People code switch because they have to communicate and get their message heard. People code switch to share information about themselves. So when you're speaking to people, you know, and some of those same women who call their friends the B word and this and the other, when they are around certain type of people, they don't speak that way. They code switch naturally, whether it be an elder in their family, whether it's a politician. They don't speak to these people that way, which means you have a certain level of respect for that person, to where you don't communicate with them the same way you communicate with your friends or other people that you feel like are basically immoral people that you can say whatever to. You cannot communicate with me like that. Period. So, I'm a code switcher, proudly. One thing that never changes is my message. That will always stay the same. So I'm not fake. Let's just be clear, because I think that's sometimes implied. I'm never fake. However, I do code switch to get my message heard and my point across. I am a communicator. I am a communication person. I graduated in communications. I'm still in school for communications and psychology. So I'm all about communicating. So I can communicate cross-culturally. And I think that it's important that we all have that skill. So that's tea time.